Hello and welcome to TCCA. This is year 2020, and I know we're doing this a little bit different this year, and we're all over the world. But hey, one good thing, we all have VIP parking this year, and we're not fighting for spots. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Miss Tiffany Grant Scott and take it away.
Good morning, guys. I hope you were also watching that keynote speaker. Michael, you totally revigorized me, innovated me, and I hope that you guys got the same experience because I'm a teacher, just like many of you. I'm in the trenches. I'm still doing the work. I feel the stress level, but together, like he said, it really does make a difference. So thank you so much for being a part of my professional learning network as well. Let's start right here, okay? When you look at an image like this, you see things like Nike, a sunflower, an elephant, giraffe, the Apple logo. But what could link these things together? What could be the common theme with something that has businesses? Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A. Who doesn't love Chick-fil-A, right? But what's linking them together? It's not so much about where they are. It's about where they're going. It's about the opportunity that all of them bring so that they're not just here today, but they are here tomorrow and for years to come. So once again, my name is Tiffany Grant Scott, and I am a teacher working in Aldine ISD. And I am going to talk to you about B.I.M.A². To me, it's just blending an infinite mindset for an abnormal adaptation. So jump in the car with me and let's go for a ride, shall we? So when we talk about adaptations, I'm a science teacher. I love science. So shout out to all my science teachers out there. But along my road in education, which I'm almost hitting my 15th year. 15. But along my road, I have been exposed to being a science teacher, a social studies teacher. I'm currently a reading teacher. I have been an administrator. I have worked in middle school level. I'm now in elementary level, and I've been in intermediate. I have been in so many different facets of this thing called education that I believe the only reason I'm still here today and still fired up with this kind of energy is because of an adaptation. I've learned how to mold and build myself year after year, depending on the assignment that I was either given or requested. So let's be very honest, because after all, I'm a teacher. I'm not a presenter that does this on a regular basis. I actually just jumped right in and I told Justin, why not? It's 2020. Everything else is going out in 2020. So to me, why not? But, during that, 5, 6, 7 months that I was away from my normal, I had a lot of different things going through my head. Do any of these words jump out to you? Maybe you've heard people around you, your colleagues in the lounge that you should be passing through, not sitting in, social distancing, or even just that friend, that accountability partner. But it's all about perspective. That's the key word. You have the opportunity, the choice to decide, how does 2020 education look? Not just for my students, but even for me. How does education look, not just today in October, but how will it look 3 years from now in October? How will it look when my daughter, my 5-year-old, is then sitting in a 5th grade classroom? I have the power. You have the power. We can empower each other because we could choose to look at 2020 as only a crisis, or we could choose to look at 2020 as a chance for change, or even a growth season, like a farmer. But no matter what, we have to decide and make the choice on this road of education. How are we going to drive? What are we going to drive? Are we going to drive a mindset that goes one way, or are we going to drive with a mindset that branches out new possibilities? So what I'm really introducing you to are the two types of mindset. You have an infinite mindset versus a finite mindset. So I'm not going to read to you because I respect your professionalism. You're my tribe. So as you read through this list, I want you to kind of think, where do I fit in? Take a real deep reflection and truly think about it. Where do I fit in? Where has my mindset been? Have I always been infinite? Have I sat among that finite group and maybe embraced their mindset? Well, the goal for this presentation is that I want you to not only recognize where you are currently, but to also open your mind and embrace where I could go. Where could I be, not just today in this one technology conference, but my classroom, my office, my department that I might be leading? Because after all, leadership sets the example. So thank you to any leaders that are in this session right now, because you set the tone. Attitude reflects leadership. So hopefully you went more for the infinite mindset. But if not, I'm hoping that by the end of my presentation, we can not only embrace the infinite mindset, but start to create a plan, an action plan. How could I bring it into my classroom? How could I take what used to be that one goal, that one objective? Oh, they got a test. I need everybody to be at this level. Oh, they have another benchmark. I need to look like this on paper. To then recognizing there really is no finish line. My work is really never done. Because with an infinite mindset, I'm not just teaching for a test. Yeah, that is kind of like my pet peeve when I hear so many people talk about teaching for a test, teaching for a test. Yeah, we're Texas. We know STAR is over our shoulders. It's always looming. But why did you get in this profession? If you're like me, I didn't get into this profession for a test, because back then there was tax and toss, and now we got STAR. So who cares what test is going to come and go? If you're really trying to sustain in this thing called education, you have to embrace the infinite mindset. You have to become a chameleon. You have to become Netflix. You have to become Nike. You have to become Apple, which are ever-changing communities. If you didn't know, Apple never started off really in iTunes and computers. They were fighting up against with IBM, but it was something about molding and changing with the times that we still have Apple, which is almost dominating. And where's IBM? Have you seen a Blockbuster around lately? I haven't either. So what happened to them? They stayed in that finite mindset. They couldn't embrace the change. So here comes Netflix, ready, willing, and available. Why get up off the couch to go rent the movie when you could stream it straight to your house or even to your phone wherever you are? So one thing is true, that an infinite mindset is not just for today. An infinite mindset could start today, but it lasts forever. He looks a little out of place, wouldn't you say? But just like you might feel out of place right now. Yeah, I definitely felt very much out of place, out of my comfort zone. I was asked to teach not just science, which I love, but also to become a reading teacher, which, all transparency, I never really was that student in love with reading. But I have the choice. I have the ability to either stick to that finite mindset or to adapt, to make changes, to learn new ways where I can grow. Because after all, 2020 is certainly not a predictable year. For my science teachers out there, let me tell you something I used with my kiddos this year. We were doing the lesson weather versus climate. And I don't know about you, but my students, that's something that we just always struggle with, differentiating weather versus climate. So we came up with a way to connect it outside of just weather and climate. I have my students recognize that 2020 is not predictable. 2020 changes almost within every second, almost within every minute. 2020 is something that you never know what could happen. I mean, right now we're sitting in this TCCA conference, but then next thing you know, we could all Wi-Fi just drop, crash, the whole stream just goes away. So one thing is for sure, this polar bear, yeah, he's not in place. But over time, adaptations do take effect. And there is no saying he could not survive there over time. So everything is a process. Everything requires some growing, some patience. And one thing about growing has seasons. You don't always survive the first one, but what doesn't kill you will definitely make you stronger. So I was inspired. My current inspiration is Mr. Simon Sinek. If you've never heard about him, I promise you, I trust you. He is one that will definitely revolutionize your mind. He is one that I feel he could maybe even bring back some hope. Because if you're like me, there have been several days this school year where you feel like I'm gasping for air. I'm running on no energy. There's no finish line in nearby, and I'm constantly being inundated and loaded. I can't do this. It's not possible. I just want my reality back. I just want everything the way it used to be. But who says there is going back? We're holding our breath. We're looking forward to 2021 because some way we're hoping that the clock will just go back and that everything will return back to normal as soon as we say Happy New Year. But that's that finite mindset. That's that mindset that keeps you in a box. But an infinite mindset, such as Simon will explain, an infinite mindset will have you going to your next level.
So one of the things that an infinite mindset provides is sort of what I would call a quiet confidence or a calm confidence. So, for example, if I were to tell you there's going to be a massive snowstorm or a massive hurricane in next Thursday, you're like, all right, it's going to be awful. It's going to shut down work. Not going to get to work. I may telecommute. I may take the day off. It's definitely going to hurt a lot of companies, right? Going to hurt if you're it could destroy a farm, right? But we've had lots of hurricanes. We know how to deal with it. We know how to prepare for it. We know there's going to be a short-term hit, and we know how to ride it out. Right. Well, most of us live 70 to 80 years old. Imagine if we lived for 1,000 years. This would be like the 6th or 7th pandemic that we faced in our lives. We know it's going to hurt. We know it's going to be over, and we know there's going to be pain, and we know how to prepare for it. Yeah. So what an infinite mindset provides is it helps you see what we're going through now, not as the end, but rather just part of the journey. Like it's hard and it's difficult, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We're in darkness, but we know this comes to an end. We also know that life will not be the same afterwards. This is like World War II. It's like the way life was before World War II is not what life was like after World War II. The way that life was before this pandemic will not be what it's going to be. When we talked about going back to normal, there is no going back to normal. Yeah. As a friend of mine called it the other day, which I like, we're going back to abnormal. Yeah. It will be different. We don't really know how. But this is what's really important to remember is this is not without precedence, which is we have gone through things before that have shaken the business world, sometimes forcing companies out of business. What do you think the internet did? I mean, the internet, put a lot of companies out of business who couldn't adapt to a new business, to the new change, and it created new businesses. And some businesses were forced to adjust, some proactively and did very well, some defensively, and they're still trying to figure it out. Streaming put all video stores out of business. Didn't have to, but it did. Starbucks, when Starbucks would come into a neighborhood, people would complain that Starbucks would put mom and pop coffee shops out of business. Actually, the data shows the opposite, that when Starbucks moved into a neighborhood, mom and pop coffee shops actually did better because it brought customers and people had a groundswell for the local business. The ones that went out of business were the ones that couldn't adapt. They still had that old ripped up couch because they had a monopoly on coffee shops. And when Starbucks came in with nice clean stores, they simply complained about Starbucks and they went out of business. It's like taxis complaining about Uber. An app doesn't put you out of business. You can have an app to hail a taxi. Yeah. It's because you have you have to adapt for the changing times, for new technologies, new companies, new competition, new ways of doing business. And if you don't adapt, you die. Now, that's not universal. Some companies, like video stores, some companies, this is just too much to bear, and there's very little we can do. But to think of this in terms of what skill sets do we have, what is our why, and how else can we bring that to life? This is way more sudden than the internet. It's way more shocking. It's way more unnerving, but it's not new in business. We know how to do this. I read of, I'll tell you two stories. There's a restaurant in New York City called Res Dora. It's a pasta restaurant. It's a relatively new restaurant. It's only been open about 9 months, so they're still they're still making a name for themselves. And of course, when New York City issued the order that restaurants could only be 50%, these guys saw the writing on the wall. They could see that this is going to get worse. So they immediately started to adapt their company. So instead of firing all the waiters, saying, well, we don't need waiters anymore, they changed everybody's job. So all those same waiters are now packaging food and organizing online orders and call-in orders, which, by the way, they had to develop. This is a high-end restaurant. They didn't deliver food. They had to immediately figure out how to do that. But the point is everybody kept their job because they changed their jobs. Yeah. So just as the company had to adapt, the people had to adapt as well. The people who said, well, I'm only a waiter, well, I got no job for you. Yeah. And so what we're experiencing even in our own company, which is we're forced to adapt. We do live events. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. So if I have somebody on my team going, I'm only going to do live events, well, I got none for you. Right. So we have to adapt as individuals as much as we have to adapt as companies. I tell you of another pizzeria in Chicago. Of course, 70% of their money came in from selling slices. Well, that's done. Yeah. Not sustainable. So what they recognized is they have assets. They have resources. They have a pizza oven. And so what they did is they started ordering medical grade, industrial grade plastic that their oven was hot enough to heat. And they started making face shields to sell to hospitals. Wow. So they're using their pizza oven to make face shields because they can get the oven hot enough to melt the plastic. Wow. I mean, genius. Yeah. Now, when this is all over, they may go back to selling pizzas, or they may have two businesses.
So when you think about that video, yeah, he's talking about businesses. You might feel like that's his world. It doesn't relate to my world. But it really does. Because we have the opportunity to be that pizza shop. We have the opportunity to embrace a new reality. We could stay stuck in what was the way it used to be, how I always done it. This has never happened before. Or we can make a conscious decision to break free of that finite mindset and really embrace the infinite mindset. Think about it. Infinite, infinity and beyond. I don't know about you, but I love teaching. I really got into the field of teaching because I wanted to shape. I wanted to grow students. I wanted more students to embrace science because to me, science is ever changing. Science is the subject matter that is currently, with all the COVID stuff, science is what's winning right now. And I want my students to not just be on the receiving end of it, but I want my students to be in the creation part of the process. I want to see my students lead, just like our keynote speaker talked about, teaching our students to see themselves not just sitting in a classroom, but see themselves for the future and how they will also become a part of shaping the next role of the future. So here's our reality, whether you embrace it or not. These pictures are clearly what we're facing in the classroom. And those that might not be in the classroom, if you haven't stepped into a classroom, I dare you, go check some out. The future and the past are both existing right now in the present. When you look at that picture on the far left side, yeah, that looks kind of like the past. You know, rows nice and straight, everyone facing one direction, teacher standing in the front of the classroom, students are sitting down watching. And I get it. Because we're in a pandemic, we're embracing CDC guidelines. Safety is still the priority. But who said you had to totally neglect the future we were already starting to go towards? We are on the 21st century cusp. It's our job to create students that are ready to lead the next generation. So we can't go back just because the furniture has to go back. You still have the opportunity to embrace the future, create things, teach your students to take the lead and not just sit back and watch you. I don't know about you, but I had learned in those classrooms. I remember how I felt sitting in those classrooms. How did you feel? Did you feel happy sitting in those kind of classrooms? Did you feel like you were really part of it or just watching a show every day? Did you feel like you had control? I never felt any of that. I was actually just watching the clock most of those days. And it's because classes like that, I wanted to become a science teacher because I knew in a science classroom, there is a better way. I'm teaching science. Why am I sitting down for 45, 50 minutes and just listening to someone else? So our future technology is there. It's embraced. And our real future, they're not all in the classroom anymore. This doesn't have to be temporary. It won't be temporary. Our new abnormal will become the normal. Students will have choice. I'm in Aldine, and one thing our superintendent, Dr. Goffney, is always saying is that she wants students to have choices. So even right now, we might be in a season of discomfort, but there is no denying our normal from yesterday is gone. And it is time for all of us to embrace the abnormal. This quote is something that just always jumps out at me. I mean, my daughter, she loves that. She watches it like a million times. But it's what she said that is just so profound. Just because it works doesn't mean it can't be improved. So I talk to a lot of professionals. You know, I keep my professional learning network always growing. I try to make sure that I'm not becoming stagnant and that I'm surrounding myself with people that will push me to the next level. I mean, very honest and candid, I didn't ask to be a reading teacher, but my principal sees something in me and she's given me the push that I needed. So I respect her for that. Because just because I was good at being a science teacher doesn't mean I couldn't improve and become a great reading teacher or become a better social studies teacher next year. So many people say, oh, I got an education because I want to change the world. That's great. I got an education because I see the education system is kind of broken and I want to be part of the solution, not the problem. That's amazing. And that's the fuel that you have to reconnect to in order to catalyze and really fire yourself back up. Because this year, you could find yourself losing energy. You could find yourself deflated. You could find yourself thinking of other options. But you have to remember the why. You have to remember the reason why you got into this. And look at 2020, or look at just how this evolution is happening right in front of our eyes as a growing season, just like a farmer. So this season is definitely what I would call disruptive innovation. Okay? It's not what you wanted. It didn't ask you for permission. And you certainly do have to be creative. You have to loosen up a little bit. Don't be so uptight. Let your human side come out a little bit more. What I'm really saying is you have to shape your mindset. Get out of that finite, everything's this way, resources are only this, students can only do this, and just embrace, or rather just open up, allow it to take course. So the challenge is evident, the change is obvious, but the innovation is endless if you choose to change the mindset. So I've been reading this book. This is a book I've actually been reading called Blended, Using Disruptive Innovation to Improve Schools. I got this book back in 2014. I was at a conference and they gave this book away to all the teachers. This book was written 2015. And it's kind of strange because this book was written so many years ago, but yet it was so on point. They were already predicting that the evolution was coming. And just like the keynote speaker said, the data supports it, because those other students, the more affluent students, the ones that had more financial support, they were already embracing this. We're just catching up in some districts. My district is one of those districts. We're trying to catch up so that we could possibly level the playing field. But we have a choice. Do we sit back and just complain because things are not the way that they used to be? Or do we run with the trenches, go through the challenges, go through the frustration, ride the emotional roller coaster, and embrace something called maybe a blended learning, an opportunity where we bring in the technology, we bring in the at-home connections, the global connections, project-based learning, because I don't have them all in my same four walls anymore. I got some students at home. I got some students sitting in the classroom with me, but they are learning. They are getting their needs met. And it takes a lot of just letting go. Something a lot of people have a hard time doing, but I promise you, when you blend it, it actually gives you a and less of a So we're going to work through it. Trust me, I'm a teacher like a lot of you guys, and I am not just here for watching me lead and talk a lecture. So yeah, we're going to talk through how to do this and how to get started. So first thing is your mindset. You have to change your mindset. You have to embrace that there is new, that 2020 is the goal achieving, game changing opportunity. I have to let go. I have to release, and I have to empower. That's the word. I have to empower my students to do something that they have not been used to doing, to lead. I have to empower my students to own, because not all of them are right there with me. They are in different places, different spaces, and whether they are with me in the classroom or whether they are on a screen looking at me, they are all in charge of their own learning. They all have the opportunity in order to create, cultivate, take on new ideas and perspectives. Look at what's happened in the past and create ideas for their future. That TikTok thing, you've heard about it a lot. Yeah, a lot of kids, they got it. They can teach you how to do it. All the social media platforms, and trust me, there are a lot more than just Facebook and Twitter and TikTok. But guess who knows all that? Guess who's leading the creation of that? It's not us. It's them. It's the next generations that are coming up. Those gamers where you see them in the classroom as all they do is play games. Change your mindset. Games are technology. They have to study that game. They have to know the tricks, the trades, the keys, the plays in order to reach the goal of the game. And if you've ever talked to a gamer, they will blow your mind with the way that they are strategic and how they achieve one level to the next. So your gamers could actually be some of your students that will lead your tomorrow. So rather than always teaching students, it must be this way, it must be this way, it must be this way, let them lead it. Let them own it. Let's talk about how we can do it. Number one, let go. You gotta let go. It's so hard to manage and control every movement, every result, every cause, but you're gonna burn yourself out. You have to let go and empower your students. Set the bones, not the muscles. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. I'm going to show you how to set bones and not muscles. Remember, your students are small humans. I want to pause on that one for just a minute. How do you feel when you're being micromanaged? How do you feel when you are robbed of choice and opinion and creativity, but rather told it has to be done a certain way? So if you don't like it, why do you enforce it on other people? They're not just students. They are humans and they will grow and evolve. And more, that farmer mindset, I've said it a few times. A farmer, he's always growing, but he grows in seasons. So he recognizes that it's going to take time for my crops to grow. He doesn't just drop the seed and expect fruit tomorrow. He doesn't just plant the corn and expect a field within an hour. And if it doesn't work within an hour, he burns the whole field down and says, this is not working. It's going, you know where. No, the farmer mindset, he understands that things take time, that not all my crops are going to survive, that not everything is going to be so fluid and so patient. The farmer knows that there's a growing season right before the harvest. So let's talk about how to do it. One way to empower your students, one way to give them student voice and student choice, let them lead. God, I have been in so many classrooms where it's so quiet. You could hear a pencil drop because the only person talking is the teacher. Let go. We encourage healthy debate. You know, you give that warm-up question, that jumpstart question. Yeah, it gets them quiet. It gets them settled at the beginning of class. But who said you had to be the one to give the answer? Who said you had to be the one to validate that the answer was correct? Let them debate. Let them talk it out. If they have a difference of opinion, rather than robbing them of that healthy conversation, facilitate it. Encourage it. I wish I could have shown you video of my students, but I didn't want their faces exposed. But I actually allow the healthy debates to just take place. I don't always plan for them. Sometimes they're impromptu. But one thing is for sure, I let my students know I am not the only teacher in the classroom. We all have the authority in this classroom to teach others and to learn and grow. So I allow my students to engage in healthy debate. You want them to explain and answer on paper? Why not let them use their voice and talk through their explanations as well? One thing my department taught me early on in my career is that when we go on over like a test, a benchmark, don't just let the students listen to you. Challenge them, force them, push them into having healthy metacognition conversations. Allow them to decide what answer is right. Before you know it, you'll have peer tutoring. You'll have students going back to recall their references. I mean, they'll run to go get those notebooks just so they can prove to someone else that they deserve the points and teach the other one, this is why I get my points and you probably won't. So you have to allow things. This is one of those let go moments. I don't have the time. Time is very short. Well, I get it, but you have to embrace and allow it. Those students need to be empowered to use their voices. They have to be able to make choices, or else they won't be able to move into the next century. They won't be able to live and lead the next days ahead. So let go of the time and encourage the voice. Empower. I mean, the word empower, I say it a lot, but it really does do something with your students. It really does help them to see, I am more than just a person in a room. I am more than just a body on this planet. I have a voice that deserves to be heard. Call them a lawyer. No, not call them a lawyer, but actually call your students lawyers. Put them in that mindset of one day they could be in the courtroom, that one day they could actually be defending a case. And in order for them to win their case, they have to have strong evidence. They have to make a claim. They have to make sure that the evidence supports the claim, and just lead them through that process. And the beauty, oh my God, I'm always blown away by what they say, their conversation. And then the other students who are listening, they jump in. And before you know it, it becomes cooperative learning at a whole group format. How about creative expression? This is one where a lot of people are kind of like, I do it. But how do you do it? You know, just because you give the question open-ended and no answer choices, yeah, that's a step in the right direction. It really is. But when I talk about creative expression, you have to open up to different modalities. Not every student learns the same way. And not every student expresses the same way either. So yeah, we're in this digital world, and it's so much easier to make everything multiple choice. That way it self-grades. That way it's already done and I have less things to breathe. But remember that why. Why did you get an education? Did you get an education for your self-pleasure? As in self-fulfilling? Or did you get an education because you wanted to be part of the solution? This year, it'll make you second guess a lot. I have second guessed a lot. But I surround myself with professional learning and innovative podcasts and TED Talks that will inspire me to just keep trying and don't give up. Ask for help when I'm failing and mold and conform to my new reality. So Flipgrid is a great one where allowing your students to speak, allowing them to use their voice, allowing them to make some choices. So if you see on the bottom, I gave my students a density dive challenge. That was the context. The lesson was all about density, relative density to be exact. We were all virtual. I hadn't seen a single student in front of me other than a screen at that time. So I had to release and let go, because if they were in my classroom, yeah, I probably would have been able to set out specific materials. Every student has the same materials. Everybody's going to get the same results. Everybody's going to get the same. There's that box again. The same. So I embraced the Flipgrid and let them create their own experiment. I didn't tell them what to do. All I did is that they have to create an experiment to demonstrate their understanding. So I still was able to assess and measure whether they had obtained the content knowledge, but I didn't tell them how to do it. I gave them bones and let their muscles do the work. I mean, it's just like being in a gym. You got to flex those muscles. They're going to hurt. But if you keep going, the growth, the density, the magnetism of your muscles, endless. How about your writers? I don't mean your writers as in they just write the answer to a question. I mean, really letting them create. Now that I'm a reading teacher, I really have had an awakening, a real disruptive innovation, I should say, that they could really be cross-curricular in so many ways. So now that I'm in this genre of poetry, I could create an opportunity where my students write a poem about what they learned. Or those students that like poetry and reading class more than science, there goes my bait. I just brought them into science because I'm connecting to their form of learning. Make it their own. You have to let go. It's not easy. I mean, the first couple of years when I did it, I was so nervous. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Oh, they're going to do this. They're going to do that. No, you have to let go. Let go. And it starts with you. You have to be the model. Come out of that comfort zone. Show them you're human. I mean, I'm a musical person. I love music and I love all genres of music. And so one thing I do is that I perform. I act out. I let my students see me in different ways. So I make YouTube videos rapping different contexts. Or I might just break out in song in the middle of teaching the lesson. And they're like, Ms. Scott, were you just singing? Yeah, I was. Or graphic organizers, visual expectations. I got a lot of students that are into anime and art. I had one student just yesterday, he's new to the district, and he asked, where's art? So already I know that he is one that if I give him the choice to show me his learning in an artistic form, he would be able to do it because he would be engaged, he would be invested, and I'm meeting him at his level. I'm empowering him to do his own learning. Here's one of my favorites, those choice boards. Oh yeah, choice boards. Shout out to Miss Stacy Stallings. I hope she sees this because she definitely left an imprint on me. Miss Stacy Stallings introduced me to choice boards at another technology conference that my district offers. And she showed me that it doesn't always have to start so heavy. It doesn't always have to start with a lot. Start with a little and then build. You know, Michael Bonner, he did a good job. He said that, you know, with all the technology apps that are constantly being thrown at teachers, especially considering we're so vulnerable right now, you can't take everything on. You have to cut it down and you have to focus on a little and then build in. So let me show you a choice board that I started with that Stacy actually showed me. Okay. So Stacy actually showed me one that would start off very small and then I could just build onto it for years to come. So here's my starting choice board. And notice I didn't start with a lot. I started very little. I told the students, watch this video, and then you either can conduct your own experiment or play a game. So I was nervous. You could tell I was nervous because I only gave them two options. I knew exactly what I wanted them to do. I was totally still in that finite mindset, but I was starting to budge. I was starting to let go. So then after I came out of that finite mindset and I started to evolve with the time, then I noticed that it changed, that that choice board that I started with before that only had limited options, I now could take it and go to a place where they have variety, a place where I really am trusting them to do what they want to do and not just what I'm telling them to do. Brace yourself. Instead of just giving them 3 options, I gave them 9. They had free range of what they wanted to do, but it was all measuring whether or not they had grasped the concept. So remember that gamer we talked about? Yep, I got something for them. That artistic student, that creative expression, got something for you. Multiple choice, I got that in there too. How about inquiry, investigations, letting them make their own experiments, project-based learning? You could give them the bones, but let them flex their muscles. You'll be surprised what they can do, but you have to let them do it. You have to release and you have to let go. I can't stress that enough. You have to release and you have to let go. So if there are any questions out there in the chat box, go ahead, please let me know.
That was a wonderful session, Miss Grant Scott. When you said something, you were talking about the plants, and that reminded me of one of my favorite quotes. When you're growing a plant, I'm an avid gardener. I love gardening. I have pot peppers and chili peppers all in my garden. And when a plant doesn't grow properly, when it's dying, you don't get mad at the plant for not growing. You change the conditions that that plant is in so that it can grow. So I just absolutely loved that session, and I just wanted to just point that out because I absolutely love that. So if there are any questions, please put them into the chat box. That was absolutely wonderful, and I will be putting the session password right here at the bottom of the page. So you can see right down there at the bottom, the password is right there. Learn.
So guys, thank you so much for joining me. I wish we had a little bit more time, especially so I can walk through this with you. But I appreciate you being here so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I think people would love to see more examples of your choice board. So, if you want to put your handle in the chat, maybe you could share those out so that they could see them. And then one question was, you talk about keeping that infinite mindset. Who do you surround yourself at your campus or in your professional learning community to keep that infinite mindset? Because it's so easily to get pulled into that toxic mindset.
Very much so. I'm just moved to a new campus last year, and I had the privilege of being at an ACE demonstration school where there's a lot of people that were deemed highly effective professionals in the classroom. And so I am surrounded by that infinite mindset every single day. And it is a leader top-down effect. But before I got to this campus, I made intention that I would find the people that thought like me and steer myself kind of away from those that were not open to embracing an infinite mindset.
Thank you for sharing. A lot of aha moments about choice board. Excellent presentation, very informative. So again, thank you for sharing.
Not a problem. So there's just the last slide about, remember, you have the power to choose your how you get there, your mindset. And if you would want to follow me, my Twitter handle is certainly down there in the bottom. I will be putting more things out in Twitter. I know I became a little bit more paused with my adaptation of my new assignment this year, but look forward to more.
He's on mute.
That seems to be the common theme of 2020. So thank you so much, Ms. Grant Scott. That was an absolutely informative session. I wish you the best in your new assignment this year. I'm sure you're going to tackle it head on because you just seem to have that perfect attitude.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all so much. You have about 10 minutes before your next session, and I hope you enjoyed TCCA 2020.
I did. I really did. Thank you.
Bye.